Hi, I'm Mary Yule, and this is Energy Matters. I wanted to start out with an important announcement that on April 20th from 12 to 4, the Monadnock Co-op is going to be having an Earth Day Festival, and the Monadnock Energy Hub and the Sierra Club New Hampshire chapter are partnering to put on a Drive Electric event. And that means that they've gone out and found electric owners and dealers to bring their vehicles to one location so that residents in the local area can come and talk to them, take test drives and rides, and learn why it's so fantastic to own an electric vehicle in New Hampshire. So be sure to put that on your calendar if you're around on April 20th and come out, because it's not just the electric vehicles that you can enjoy, but the wonderful Earth Day Festival at the Co-op as well, where there's going to be food, lots of tabling, and so much to enjoy. 12 to 4, April 20th. For more information, you can go to the driveelectricearthday.org website. I hope to see you there. And now for today's programming, I'm really happy to let everyone know that I've gone through and edited the home audit that I said was taped earlier. And part 1 is going to be shown today. We were really lucky here at Energy Matters to get Doug Walker from Cellarworks to come to a New Hampshire home and do a full energy audit. So we're going to be sitting down with Doug and getting the energy audit started right now.
Energy audits, I've been doing them for a number of years here in the Monadnock region. Okay. And it's actually kind of a fun process to go through. I really engage the homeowner in this, and every house has got its own idiosyncrasies in terms of, air leakage and, where energy basically is being lost to, the outside and so forth. And it's generally a 2 or 3 hour process to go through a home. Okay. We'll be using a blower door machine that you've probably heard about. It's a really big fan that we put on the side of your house, an infrared camera, maybe a little smoke stick that we'll use, and even just using our hands, or even sometimes looking for cobwebs, for looking for drafts that are coming inside of the house. So, but essentially what we're going to be looking at is the integrity of this envelope around your home. Mm-hmm. So when most people are very well aware of having a home well insulated, but insulation is only as good as it is air sealed to the environment. So we're going to be primarily using the machine to look for how well the house is air sealed. Okay. And so that's essentially what we're doing. So.
Okay, and we want it to be air sealed, so we're not getting that cold or the cold air coming in during the winter, or that really warm air coming in during the summer, right? I mean, it can actually work both ways. Right.
I mean, if you imagine yourself, if you were like kind of wrapped in a roll of fiberglass, but you had no outside covering on it, the air would just go through it. Mm-hmm. So it's the outer jacket, so to speak, that we're going to be checking on the home. Okay. So, and you need the tools to find out. So, on the other hand, if you have a day where the wind is hitting, the side of the building at 20 miles per hour, folks that are sitting down next to a drafty window, they can feel, the cold air coming in or so forth like that. Well, this machine is essentially going to duplicate that effect. But okay. We're going to be like hitting this house with like a 20-mile-an-hour wind on all 4 sides at the same time. And it's kind of a neat process to go through. And no, we don't have to nail down the carpets or worry about the cats being sucked out of the building or something like that.
Well, that's good, because there are a couple of cats here.
Pets are safe, yeah. So, and we don't have, some wood stoves or fireplaces to deal with, and ashes and, things like that. So,
but we did have one thing this morning that before we're filming today, Doug, that you had to take care of in this specific house.
Right, right. So we have to look at what type of penetrations are going through the envelope in the house. And this particular house is set up very nicely with an HRV system, a heating recovery ventilator, heat recovery ventilator. Well, that had an open tube to the outside that running the blower door machine would just essentially just pull air right through it. Kind of the same thing if we have a wood stove or a fireplace. We have to shut the dampers down, or else we're going to get a false reading. That's in terms of what the actual air leakage is in the home.
Okay,
That
so
ventilator naturally is going to be pulling air in. We're not looking for that type of air that's coming in. We're looking for the air that's not being controlled, and that's that's air coming in around doors and windows, or through siding, or where a building is sitting on top of a foundation, things like that. So.
okay, and we'll talk more, and we'll actually see more of that today while
Sure,
you're doing your audit.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Well, we're going to begin walking around, and Doug's going to be setting up the blower so we can get started with this audit. So stay tuned. Before Doug is going to get up and set up that blower, he wants to talk about some building science that's real important for any home audit.
Every time we get involved with a home, I always sit down and have a little discussion about building science and why we're making the test, how we undertake energy saving improvements, and what order we take them in. For example, if I run into somebody that says, Doug, we really want to save energy in our home, and solar panels, that looks like a neat way to go. And I pretty much stopped the game right there and said, there's a priority in terms of where these improvements are made.
And you have this great triangle that makes it kind of really easy for us to look at.
Right. It helps really to illustrate, starting with energy conservation, just that most folks can undertake themselves. Changing incandescent bulbs to compacts to LEDs and so forth. Most folks get that. A lot of folks have already taken leads on putting plastic, shrink wrap plastic on windows and so forth to cut down on drafts and so forth, or grabbing a can of spray foam to fill up a hole where the oil line comes into your basement, so forth. That's just starting with energy conservation and the simple manners right there. If a home still has excessive fuel consumption, that's where the energy audit comes in. And then we work up through air sealing, then we're looking at the insulation, we're looking at ventilating the home, we're looking at doors and windows. And then we get into heating efficiency of the equipment. And then last but not least, after we've taken care of these things, then we talk about solar panels and solar hot water heating if we're getting into there. In terms of the house itself, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so when someone is talking about solar panels and they're real excited, they really want to step back and say, hey, I want to button up my home first.
Exactly.
And there's and this triangle, there's so many different options that they want to look at before they go to those solar panels and see where they are in terms of energy. And that could even save them when they put the panels on top of their home, because they might not need as many panels, right?
Definitely. I tell folks in a nutshell, I said, if your house is built like a barn, and you're just bleeding heat right out to it. I mean, you really have to concentrate first on sealing up that house, insulating it properly. You go through that, list first. Then, if you're able to work up to, then you can do the solar panels. That's the icing on the cake at that point, so to speak. So,
okay, great.
So that's kind of where that fits in. And I also did a pie chart that shows where, in terms of the average home here in New England, typically most of the energy goes into space heating, about 60%. Water heating about 18%, appliances 14%, lighting 5%, And cooling, this is, north of the Mason-Dixon, so this is not really, much air conditioning going on, relatively speaking. So again, it brings us back to why we're concentrating on air infiltration and space heating in the home. That's our biggest energy load. Perhaps, maybe you folks have heard about the stack effect.
I talked a little bit about it last week, so they've heard a little bit about it, but hearing about it from an expert, I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy that.
Yeah,
add a little bit more.
This is probably one of the most important lessons in building science there is. I kind of call it also the thermal chimney effect.
Okay.
So, when you go into your chart here, most folks get the idea that a lot of your heat is going out the top of your your air molecules are heated up, they're expanding in all directions, but most of it's going out through the top of the roof and so forth. So a lot of folks, definitely get the idea of capping off the house and so forth. What a lot of us don't realize is that if you think of a wood stove with the heat going out the top of the chimney, where is that being fed from? Mm-hmm. And where's the cold air intake from? So essentially you've got a heat flow that's being set up where heat's going out the top of the building, but it's being fed from cold air coming in. So you've got a high pressure of air pushed out of the building, and you've also got a negative pressure from air being pulled into the bottom. That's why you have, like when you start up the heating systems in the fall, especially in your antique homes here in the Monadnock region, people have that organic smell, that's because the cold air is coming through the basement and so forth, and it might be musty, moldy smell and so forth, especially if there's a dirt floor down there. But they only seem to notice it in the fall when the heating system, well, you've started that cycle up. What's critical about this is that the pressure, now the taller the building, and basically that essentially affects how much pressure there is in a building. Mm-hmm. So a tall building will have, for a hole in the bottom of a tall building versus a hole in the bottom of like a ranch house or so forth, the tall building would have more pressure differential between the lower and the upper section. The critical thing to know here is that the attics and the basement areas have the most pressure areas available, negative and positive. Mm-hmm. That's where you can get the best bang for your buck in terms of doing energy improvements. Mm-hmm. The windows in the middle are essentially in the neutral pressure plane. Yeah. So if you're going to be investing some good money into the house, I could absolutely say you'll get more bang for the buck by concentrating on capping off that heat escaping on the top and closing that air intake on the bottom, mm-hmm. than trying to go into the wall systems or the windows. It's expensive to get into walls to pull things apart. Yeah. And to try to, and dealing with windows and so forth. You could replace a house full of windows with $30,000 and go from an R2 window to an R4 window. But I guarantee if you can go from an R6, R1, 2 foundation up to R20 or so forth and cap up your attic to R50 for the same amount of money, you'll get a lot more bang for your buck, a lot more noticeable effects. So that's why it's imperative to understand that thermal chimney effect in your home, and that helps you again focus on where you're going to be making your energy improvements. And fortunately, most of the time that those air sealing, the basements and the attics, those areas are generally more accessible. So again, it brings you back to attics and ceilings. That's where a lot of my work is concentrated mm-hmm. on. And it's not much of an exaggeration, but a window almost has to be falling out of the, out of the building for me to really pay attention to it, because they're expensive to do. So So, but that's kind of my short, lesson on the stack effect that explains to folks why we do a lot of our work concentrating on attics and ceilings. Mm-hmm. And basements and so forth, and it all ties back into the building science, in terms of the stacked effect. So it's a critical part. So
yeah, and really making sure that your dollars are being spent in the wisest way,
right?
So that you're getting that bigger R factor change and sealing that home. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. We want to focus your dollars and focus your improvements. So when we go through the process of setting up a blower door and depressurizing the house, we're going to be looking for drafts that are coming in. We're mm-hmm. going to use an infrared camera to help us see it. We're going to feel it. And then we're going to come up with a prioritized list of improvements, but it all ties back into the energy dynamics of your house. So you got to pay attention to the building science, because this is going to essentially save you money in the long run.
Yeah, but it's not, I think homeowners naturally think about the things that they can see, right? And we can see windows, and oh, isn't it nice to have solar panels on your roof, and other people can see it. But what's really important is all that stuff we don't see and we don't look at a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
Most of us aren't going up into our attic a whole lot.
That's right. And but maybe if we do a really nice job in your basement, you might, at your next party, you might grab a glass of wine and say, "Hey, want to check out my basement?"
Yeah.
It's usually the last place you want to go in a home, especially in a New England home.
Yes. Although this basement's pretty nice, I think.
Very nice.
Okay, well we're gonna let Doug set up the blower and get started with this energy audit. Okay, Doug?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I see this frame here, and it looks like it's going to fit right into the door frame.
Right. So what we do is take this. This is going to be housing the blower door assembly. So typically go to the front door of the house, but any house really can do.
Okay.
If it's a standard size opening. So this right here essentially just goes in right against the weather seals, and essentially what we do is loosen it up. And essentially it ends up being kind of custom sized to your, you just turn down these little knobs.
Okay.
Then we take our frame, let's go over here, and walk it right over. And you can grab this side. We're just going to sit it down there. And now what we're going to do is kind of just grab these tabs, okay? Do that, and then make sure that's okay. That's reasonably good. And then this guy essentially goes in here like that. And then you can pick your side up.
Okay.
This will reverse things like that. And now we're going to walk it right back over to the frame again. So this is a 3/4 horsepower fan. And make it set up into here. And this wraps right around the flange. Definitely a nice tight fit. That sits like that. And this guy comes in. And we're like that. So now I've got a nice tight seal.
Great. So we're ready.
That's open. The storm door is actually open.
Okay.
Doing pretty good there. All right. So now
and we have all of the propane heating system turned off.
Right.
Yeah.
So typical punch list for homes is, wood stoves are stone cold by the time I get there. I give folks a call, email them whatever the night before, and tell them to, shut them down, close the dampers, no coals or embers. If we have a boiler furnace down below or a propane hot water tank, we shut all that off, because this is going to be depressurizing the house, and we don't want any of that equipment to backdraft. Okay. So we don't want any flames kind of coming into the the living area, so to speak. So you just
no, definitely not.
No.
Okay, so are we ready to flip the switch?
Yeah.
Get it running?
We've essentially got our fan in the opening. We've also got this little network of tubes right here. There's a green one here that essentially runs outside. There's a red one that runs to the fan itself. So it's going to be monitoring the pressure differential between the house and the outside.
Okay,
that
great.
Goes all the way up to this instrument. So the first thing that we have to do is we have the cover on, and we're going to be looking for, I'm going to set the machine up properly. If we had like a 10-mile-an-hour wind blowing outside, I would probably not do the, oh, you got a UPS delivery outside. You've got if you had like a 10-mile-an-hour wind or something going on, I might be inclined to cancel the audit.
Okay.
What happens is that air, this is gonna, like I said before, like a 20-mile-an-hour wind hitting it from all sides and everything. So the wind hitting on this side, that's fine, even stronger, with the machine, you could really see the drafts, but the wind's kind of pulling away from that side. And it's kind of compromising the ability to work each other. So it makes it harder to find out what's going on one side of the building. So
Okay, but it's not windy out today.
no, we're fine today.
So we're fine today.
Yeah, so it's pretty calm, so this is nice. So we're just going to enter. Okay, now this is a fairly good size house. So what we have to do, we'll notice here that we've got different openings. And the smaller the house essentially will help, the smaller opening that you would need in the fan, for the fan to run.
Okay.
And, so we might take it off like that size. But you've got a fairly big house. And I might be inclined to see how to take, maybe we'll try with this size right here. It's fairly new. And what I'm going to try to do is get a certain pressure going in this house. And the pressure is measured in pascals, P-A-S-C-A-L. And we're going to be going for like a Pascal 50 rating. So anyway.
Before the blower can start giving us the data we want, Doug needs to set up the controls.
And we're slowly going to turn the fan on now. And we're going to try to get this number up to like around -45 or number 50.
Okay, and it's at -13 now? 19, 23?
Now, so we're in a good position with the fan running. Now what we need to do is go from room to room, and we can essentially start in the basement. Let's start with, let's just look at this right here. This is our basement door. And if you want to notice, put your hand right on that crack.
Whoa. Well, we can really see,
can definitely see the
that
drafts right
air
here.
just drafting, just coming up from the basement. I hope that you've enjoyed watching part 1 of the home audit, and check back next week when Doug and I go into the basement, visit the main level, and go up to the upper level and attic of the home and learn and see all the important information that can be found during an energy audit. So be sure to check back on Energy Matters next week. I hope to see you then.